Welcome back everyone to another video. In this video, I'm really excited. I'm going to cover the topic on how to expand your network. After the last video that I've posted, so many people asked me, okay, cool, but how do you grow your network? How do you get in contact with people? So I decided to make a video just about that. So first things first, it all comes down to value exchange. No one wants to just for fun give the time. You know, a lot of the people that you're looking up to and you're trying to get in contact with, or even just people they're trying to get in contact with, they probably get hundreds of other messages of people similar to you trying to get in contact with them. So the reality is, if you don't have anything else to exchange, or another approach or something creative, then the reality is people just don't have time. It's not that they don't want to help, because of course we would all love to spend more time helping other people and doing good in the world, but the reality is we all have a limited amount of time, and the more successful you get, the busier you get. So how you create value? So in my mind, there are three main ways that you can create value. First, by the connection that you have, who you already connected to, because of course, the more connections you have, the more likely you'll be able to get in contact with someone else because they also want to be connected with you. So that's number one. Two, the skills that you have. And so skills is actually quite interesting. It can be very varied, the type of skills you might have that will essentially bring value to potential new connections. So for me, those skills need to be very specific. It could be something like really going deep into, payment methods for SaaS products, or it could be knowing everything about influencer marketing, or knowing everything about cigar, or everything about wine, or everything about race cars. Anything like this will really make a massive, massive difference. Of course, the more technical you go, the crazier it is. I don't know, like knowing the ins and outs of AI and stuff like that. All of this really makes a big difference, because if you have value to exchange and actually be able to teach something to someone, that makes a massive difference. Anyway, we'll come back to that in a second. And lastly, but of course, the most important, and probably one of the main reasons I'm out here making videos for you guys, is to build an audience, because then you can leverage that and people want to be connected with people that have larger audience. It's simple because of course, if you ask someone to jump on a podcast, or if you ask someone for an interview or whatever, and if you've got 0 followers, then of course it's much harder to do that than if you already have hundreds of thousands of followers. So those are really the three main things, and so we're going to cover all three of them to kind of see, okay, cool, how can you actually use this in a way that can grow your network? Okay, so I'm just going to illustrate how all those three exchanges of values make a massive difference when trying to build a network. So for example, now I'm obviously connected with Iman, and through that connection, I've just had so many people try and hit me up to be like, oh, hey, can we talk about this? Can we talk about that? I've got this idea. I've got this. Just because, of course, I'm the closest person that I can easily get to in order to get to Iman. So that's a clear example of, you building a network and you kind of focusing on getting a few people in your network that then essentially kind of elevates yourself. So that's a clear example of just that one point can broaden your network. And now when I meet someone, or even actually Iman in the first place, when I first met him, and a bunch of the people that I knew he was looking up to, people like Alex Icon and a few different people like this, which are really good friends of mine, that made a difference then. So of course then Iman was like, okay, cool, so that guy is not just an average person. So that really matters. So for me, that was the number one. I already had a few different connections, and I'm trying to build and trying to grow my connections, because I know that the more connections you have, the easier it is for you to get connected with other people, and then it just snowballs. So that's having connections. Now when it comes to skills, so I really recommend for you guys to almost reverse engineer a little bit who you're trying to meet and the kind of people that you're connected to and what sort of thing they do. And then reverse engineer, because if, for example, the people that you really want to be connected to, they're really into car racing, well then knowing everything about car racing, start to go to those races. And again, I'm not talking just go to the F1. I'm talking about, like your local racetrack Obviously, people that race cars most likely have some money because, to buy a fancy car to race on a racetrack with no insurance, obviously you can't be completely broke to do that. So potentially there might be people that could be interesting for you to meet there. Anyway, if you know everything about it and you can kind of go there and start talking about, the different horsepower and how it's all connected and stuff, again, people want to be around other people that know stuff. And let me give you a clear example. So I'm really into wine, and no joke, wine has opened so many doors for me. I know this might not always be the case, but on average, a lot of successful people, specifically more traditional kind of industry, law, finance, banking, M&A, all of that tend to still be into wine. So for me, really having honed my skill on wine and really knowing everything I could about wine, whenever I was in those circles, it really kind of made me stand out. And so then people want to chat with you, and then you actually get invited to other tasting events. And so for me, I've really been deep into the wine game for so long. A funny story here, the way I discovered Gary Vee wasn't through his marketing channels and everything, was through his Wine Library TV way back in 2008. So actually, all of you guys should go and watch some of the early videos from Gary Vee. It's so good. So yeah, Wine Library TV, he did over 1,000 episodes of just him tasting wines. So way back, I used to try and find the wines that he was going to review in the video, buy them, then had a spreadsheet tasting all these wines. So really that then played a massive role. So I started going to different wine tastings, again, talking to people. Often, again, the people that really love wine, they want to drink with other people that really love wine, and then you get invited. All the way to me getting invited to private sales at Sotheby's. We're invited like literally at billionaires' houses in London to just taste some of the private collection that they were going to auction, later through Sotheby's. Again, got really made friend with the head of wine at Sotheby's, who now lives in Hong Kong, a good friend of ours. And so again, through this, you just kind of keep building a network. And so, of course, you may say, yeah, that's stupid or whatever it is. But trust me, you've just got to reverse engineer who you're trying to connect with and what sort of thing they like. I've seen it time and times over. Rich people, they essentially, let's say you're really into wine. Of course, you want to drink it with people that are also really into wine. You don't want to just throw it down the drain with people that couldn't care. Same thing with cigars. Like for example, if any of you guys have watched the YouTube video from Nick Fowlkes and his son Max. So Max is a master of Havana who works at Davidoff of London, and now that kid will be flown around the world for people to want to smoke with, because if you love cigars, of course you want to have a cigar sommelier that really knows everything about it, and you want to talk to them. And so he'd be introduced in like the highest of circles. So that, but again, cars for me is a big thing. I mean, I don't know if you saw, Iman's about to do this big rally at the end of the year. Same thing. If you go there and you know everything about it, that will make a big difference. So, and really with wine, it's not very complicated. Like you could, when you go to someone's house, just bring a bottle and do some research prior. And so therefore you'll have a few things to say. For example, here I've got a Fiano, which is an Italian grape from the region of Campania in southern Italy. It's just behind the Amalfi Coast in the mountains. As you can see, it's quite a heavy, bold kind of white wine, honey color. You get quite a lot of like nuttiness on the nose, but then also quite a freshness, like a lot of fresh pear. Let's see. I mean, yeah, spectacular. So just the ability to do this really makes sense. Then again, I'm drinking this out of a Zalto glass, which is arguably one of the best glass in the world. So again, just when you have people coming over doing this, it makes a massive difference. So I'm just going to show you a few little photos and videos of some of the wine tasting I've done over the years. Again, super fun. I'm not saying you need to absolutely get plastered every weekend in order to build a network. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. In fact, you don't even need to drink too much. A lot of the guys, when they taste the wine, they just taste it and spit it out. It's not about getting drunk. It's just about knowing and like being able to explain and share value and stuff. So really for me, that has made a massive difference. In fact, that actually led me to investing lots of money into wine in an effort to kind of like grow my portfolio, but also connect with other people. Invested over $100,000 in wine. It's all stored in bonded warehouse in France. every single bottle has been tracked from the chateau to that warehouse. So again, we know it's safe and it's going to stay there for a really long time. And again, through doing that, again, I grew my network, talked to other people that were doing the same. And I'm obviously playing at a small scale. Like some of the guys that are doing that, they're spending millions and millions in wine, which again, it's awesome to be connected to. And then I can ask them because like a lot of those guys know what taps, like who I should connect with from a tax lawyer perspective, or an M&A guys, or the VC people, or banking, whatever it may be and stuff. And so honestly, it makes a big difference because often also those guys own companies, they own a bunch of different things which can also become a client of yours. And that can absolutely be the same with a number of different things. But for me, it was wine. I love it. Again, it is a bit of a stupid and passion because of how much it costs, how much time it takes to get used to it. But for me, the ROI has really been up there. Okay, so now when it comes down to audience, there's a few things I want to cover here. Obviously, pretty self-explanatory. The bigger your audience, the easier it is for you to network. But of course, it's really hard to build a big audience. So I just wanted to share a little story as well, just to show you that, again, you don't need to have 1 million followers to be able to get this done properly. So again, for me, as you can see, I don't have that many followers, but I'm out here, taking my own advice, creating the content, making sure the videos are high quality, making sure they come out frequently. And that really has already started to paying off because I've already had lots of people in my DMs messaging me. I've been hustling on Twitter for a little while. All of that really matters. But I want to tell you a little story of those two guys that I met way back in 2020. So they're called Lewis and Kyle's, and they've created this show called Lewis and Kyle Show.
You are listening to episode 44 of the Lewis and Kyle Show with Evan Carmichael.
I think your purpose comes from your pain. So once you struggle through something and you find, the how to get out, you then want to keep doing it and teach other people how to do it too. So modeling success was the thing that got me out of the hole I was in with my company. So what have I done for the past 20 years? Same thing, modeling success. I'm trying to teach you what I'm learning from Elon Musk and Oprah Winfrey and Bill Gates and all these people.
And when I first got in contact with them, they were really, really early on the podcast. They were studying at the University of Alabama, and then they were just like both, trying to figure out what they wanted to do. And so they thought, why don't we start interviewing, people that are quite successful so we can start learning, how to become successful ourselves. So of course, like everyone, they had to start with pretty much, no views, no following, nothing. But anyway, interviewed that one guy, interviewed another guy, slowly but surely and consistently kept going at it. Anyway, they got in touch with us, in touch with my wife first. They interviewed her in the podcast. My wife was like, oh, you really should speak with me to those guys because, I was essentially just in the, I don't even think I was doing, no, I wasn't even doing this at the time. So I was still like, an agency owner, but they thought I was really cool. Then they did a podcast with me. And this was probably episode 40 or something like that of their show. So I will link that in the description of the video because it's kind of funny to see. It's such an old video. But anyway, in that video, I told them literally, this is the single best thing that you guys can do to grow your network. And funnily enough, I was chatting with both of them last week. And now it's crazy. Like, again, they're not getting 1 million views on every single video. The podcast game is really hard. But anyway, they just kept going. You can see on the YouTube, you can see on the podcast that some get lots of views, some get, a limited amount of views. But that still doesn't matter. They were able to build a massive network through that. And now, honestly, they're probably both, 23, 24, something like that. And they build like an insane network. And so, it's easy to see people like Iman and be like, yeah, well, that will never happen to me because it's impossible. But those two guys started from absolutely nothing. Again, very realistic, one video after the other, one episode after the other. And now they really built a massive network through that small podcast and the small YouTube following. So that's the story I really wanted to tell you. And it's 100% valuable. Again, for me, the video that I've posted recently about how I started a company with Iman directly, not only if you haven't watched it, again, first link in the description because it's really interesting, but through that one video, I just got so many, connection requests on LinkedIn, people trying to DM me. So putting yourself out there and creating content, especially of you sharing value, makes a massive, massive difference. Okay, so now where should you network? I'm going to give you a few different places where I think you should try and network with people. So first, of course, as I said, you've got to go to places where your ideal person you want to connect with actually goes. So, wine tasting, places where you can smoke cigars, a racetrack. Again, the list goes on and on. But really, that is something that you should focus on to figure out where they are. And even if it's not to connect with them, it's just to kind of see how they interact and stuff at the beginning and all. And then again, you'll be surprised if you go to those places and again, you have value to share and you can talk about something. People really want to talk with other smart people. So if you do this, you will start growing your network. And again, from that one person you meet at any of those events, they can easily connect you to other people, especially if you're young or if you have like something of value they can share. People always love, as I said, if you have connection and you can introduce a new person to your connection, that's the highest form of networking. So if you come in, meet someone at any of those places, share value, they're like, oh man, you should really speak to this guy. Then when they introduce you to that guy, they go up as well. So anyway, for sure, figure out, reverse engineer where they could be. As I said, golf. Again, all of these are a little bit, stereotypical, but reverse engineer and figure out who you're actually trying to connect with and figure out where those guys go. Then of course, online, social media, the DMs, all of that, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all of this, definitely a place for you to also connect. But I'm going to give you a few tips here because a lot of people send really boring messages, super general stuff on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And of course, as I just mentioned earlier, if there's no value exchange, well, why would I spend 20 minutes on a random call with someone that just wants help starting an agency? That for me, there's a few rules that I think are really important. So we'll come back to this in a second. Emails also, I think you could easily cold email some people. Again, you need that value exchange because otherwise it doesn't work. Masterminds, I do think that still this is something that could really work well for a lot of you guys, because I think also one of the biggest mistake I see all of the time is people try and network with people that are like 1,000 steps ahead of them. And so you shouldn't do that. That doesn't make any sense because, as I said, why would someone that's 1,000 steps ahead of you want to connect with you? In fact, you should just try and figure out where someone who's just 10 steps ahead of you is and connect with that person. First of all, because it's way more realistic for you to be able to connect with that person, and they'll actually be able to give you tactical and practical advice on how to get to that 10 step ahead. And then again, you do it again and again and again. And then when you're ready, you'll now have all of the value necessary to really, start connecting with the target kind of mentor or connection. So this is something I see it all the time, like now trying people like that haven't even started trying to contact with Iman, send him messages about, how they would dream for him to jump on a half an hour call. That's just never going to happen. Whereas, try and find someone, maybe inside of one of his program or someone that has connected, like that consumes his content, and then you go and look at their Twitter, and then maybe they only have like 2,000 followers, but they're also an agency owner and whatever. Then you go and ask those people. That makes way more sense. So masterminds could be a really good way for you to network with people that are a bit more in the same level of you. So I think that would make sense. And then of course there's clubs, like a bunch of different, I know there've been a bunch of crypto clubs. Again, in there you could find people that are just a few steps ahead of you, but there's so many clubs in real life that again do the same thing, where it's like dedicated co-working spaces for people that do certain things. So this is what sort of thing I would actually look at to where to actually network. Okay, so now that we've covered where to do that, the last step is how do you actually reach out to those people. So as I said, just forget about reaching out to people that are 1,000 steps ahead of you. That doesn't make any sense. If you try and connect with, Iman or Drake or Beyonce, you've got no chance. That's not how you should operate. You should kind of maybe look, okay, cool. So Beyonce, look at her record label, then go on LinkedIn, look at who works for her record label, and then maybe look at maybe the marketing assistant, and then trying to connect with that person. That makes way more sense than trying to go to talk to Drake or Beyonce. You'll never get there. I mean, you might, but it's just such a waste of time, whereas the rest, it's way more realistic. Okay, so now for me, in your outreach, you need to be extremely specific, because if you go in and ask really broad questions, people just don't have time to just be like, okay, cool, well, let me tell you how to start a whole business from scratch. is, first of all, will be irrelevant for you, and it'll take way too much time. So be really specific with the question that you might have. So first of all, because if you DM that to someone, there's a possibility they could just reply back, be like, hey, this is how I do this. You know, like if it's a specific question, sometimes people actually do reply to specific questions. Where if it's just, hey, I would love to pick your brain on, you know, how to start a SaaS business. I'm just like, what SaaS? What idea? You know, what have you started? What have you tried? Anything. Whereas if someone asks me, like, hey, you know, I've been really struggling with, you know, like affiliate marketing, and I'm trying to figure out which tool I should use. Well, then since I've been through that process many times, I can easily be like, hey, actually, I think this would be that. I'm not saying that I'm going to reply right away to a message like this, but at least I could potentially reply. Versus a general thing about how to start a SaaS, I'm not going to reply to this. It'll take too long for me, and I wouldn't even know where to go. So be extremely specific in your outreach. And then again, directly, you know, show the exchange of value. Like that's just so important for me. You don't want to, like, again, honestly, even I'm not big at all, and I receive hundreds of messages of people asking for random help, but you know, not even in a nice way or anything like that. Just kind of like just the crappiest message, and you're like, why would you do that? Like obviously it took you quite a bit of effort to even send a message to start with. Why don't you polish it up a little bit? So actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how I would send a message to connect with someone on Twitter, for example. But again, it could be the same on LinkedIn, could be the same with email, could be the same with Instagram or Threads now. So the way I would go about it, I will literally say something like this. So, hey, name of the person. I've been following your journey and I'm in awe of what you've accomplished, with name of the business. And now this is the time to get specific and why you're messaging them. So I've started, then type of your business, an agency, but again, be specific, you know, a SaaS agency, SEO agency. I've started a SaaS. I started like car wash business, whatever it is, be precise. And I would love to know what you think about. And then again, this precise question. So what questions you actually have, enter that there. And now this time so it's super concise, precise, and maybe, as I said, they could directly reply back, or, you know, like, then at least they know exactly why you're messaging them. And after that, like, in exchange for your time, I would love to, in bracket, exchange of value. So here's where you could do, you know, I would love to invite you to a wine tasting. I would love to invite you to help you automate XYZ with Zapier, or whatever it may be. But at least that is very simple. You've outreach. It's very clear why why you've messaged them. Then you have a very precise question, and you're not taking the, you know, advantage of them. You're actually saying, hey, in exchange, I'll give you something that is valuable for you. So, you know, a lot of kind of older school businesses, they have zero automation done. So you could automate lots of stuff for them for free if you know everything about automation. Again, just a normal person. I actually organize wine tasting here at my house like very frequently and stuff, because it's the easiest thing to network. When we're like, oh, hey, do you want to come for a wine tasting? Everyone's like excited, even if you don't drink a lot of wine. Even if you don't drink wine at all, still smelling it and stuff, it's kind of interesting. I've had lots of people that come and have a lot of fun, even not even tasting the wine, just being around other people having fun, and themselves just smelling it, and that's it. So anyway, for sure, the exchange of value makes sense. And I really rarely receive that in my messages, but that's what I would do. And as I said, because this really allows two things. If they have a bit of time, you know, I look at my wife, she replies to hundreds and hundreds of messages a day. Like, she's insane. Like, again, her and her team, they just go and try and provide as much value to people. So if someone has a very specific question, boom, they'll directly reply. So there will be a lot of other people that do the same thing, right? Because they know if they provide the value up front, then, especially if they sell a course, or especially if they sell something, then they'll know that you'll be impressed, and then they have the ability to potentially upsell you in something. So asking a specific question, you might very well receive an actual answer. But then again, it's just more precise. People know what you want to talk about. If you were to go and jump on a 15, 20-minute call, it's very precise. It's not about, you know, like, oh yeah, let's start talking about some random stuff, which again, people you want to connect with just don't have time to do this. So be specific, you know, show that exchange of value right away in that message. And I think that will really, really help you grow your network if you do those things. But again, it's all about hard work. It's about you developing a skill that's really valuable in the marketplace. Again, it could be playing classical music, no joke. at every fancy dinner I've ever go to, or like really high-end stuff, there's often like instruments or like a piano in the corner. And actually the guy who works at Sotheby's, the head of wine there, he's like a crazy pianist. He went to like Cambridge and was on scholarship to study like physics or whatever it was, but also piano. And so everywhere we go, he starts playing piano and everyone's like just absolutely in awe what he does. And then he can go and connect with everyone, and everyone wants to be connected with him, and everyone wants to invite him. And these are all billionaire people. So again, no joke, even something like that really makes sense. So again, that's my advice for you to grow your network. I'm excited to see all of you guys and what you're going to do. And again, have a good one. Thanks for watching. If you like those videos, give it a thumbs up. This just really helps me, again, not only grow my network, but help find more people that could benefit from this advice. So have a good one. Thanks for watching, and see you very soon.